The League Two season has drawn to a close, and that means one thing. The League Two playoffs are here. In today's video, we're going to preview those League Two playoffs. We're going to talk about the strengths and weaknesses of all four teams. We're then going to preview the matchups and how they might play out. And of course, we're going to make some predictions. And ultimately, we're going to predict who I think is going to be promoted into League One as a result of the playoffs. So without further ado, let's get into the video. We're going to go through, of course, all four teams: Walsall, Wimbledon, Notts County and Chesterfield. Let's start with Walsall. Of course, finished the highest of the four teams. They finished fourth. And for the first half of the season, they were incredible, as you will have seen by videos on the channel. However, they have had an unbelievable deterioration and decline, one which has seen them pick up just one win in their last 14 games, and that win came on the final day. Their last win before that was in February. So between the end of February and all of March, all of April, they didn't win a single game. It's been an awful run of form for them. They've kind of snatched League Two status from the jaws of being in League One. They were basically there at Christmas time. They were basically there in January, and somehow, some way, they have fallen off. There are loads of reasons for that, I think. Of course, Nathan Lowe, who is their top goal scorer this season with 15 goals, he was recalled in January. The fact that he stayed as top scorer throughout the whole season, no one overtook him, speaks volumes to how important he was. But I don't think you can blame it all on just one player. I think a lot of people will see that as the easy solution. Nathan Lowe was recalled and they fell apart. But I think one player being recalled, I know he's a striker, but he shouldn't impact the way that you build up, the way you structure, all those things. One player shouldn't write your whole season off. It wasn't a one-man team either. They were a very good side due to the sum of their parts before he went. I think the one thing you've got to look at is the fact that something I mentioned in the video about Walsall earlier on, which was how consistent their team selection is. With that, though, comes fatigue and loads of minutes. They use basically the same 11 for the first half of the season, give or take. A little bit of rotation in the attacking positions, but primarily it was the same 11. And that has meant that they have got 8 players with over 3,000 minutes played this season. That is more than any other team in the playoffs. On the flip side, they've only got 13 players who have made over 1,000 minutes this season. And obviously 5 of those players are between 3,000 and 1,000. So it does highlight how small their squad is. A lot of the other teams in the playoffs have used way more than that. I think Chesterfield have had the most, but I think it was either Notts or Wimbledon had the second most with like 15 or 16, but 13 used. They basically have used 13 players as their core players across the season. And of course, it's understandable that fatigue has set in. So definitely the smallest sort of squad and overused players. All of those things are looking pretty negative for Walsall. They're all the weaknesses. What are the strengths? Well, the strength is, of course, the fact that they were the best team in the league for the first half of the season, and they finished highest of the teams in the playoffs. So, on paper at least, they're the best team in the playoffs. The other strength they've got going into this is they've got by far the best record against the other sides in these playoffs. 14 points they picked up throughout the season. It's by far the best. And that should give them hope heading into this one, because against the other teams in the playoff sort of bracket, I guess, they have been the strongest. Next up, in 5th place, we've got Wimbledon, who, of course, are going to be taking on Notts County in their playoff tie. And now Wimbledon have got by far the best defensive record. That is their main strength. They're the most organised side, not just in the playoffs, but in the league. They only conceded 35 goals, which was 10 fewer than the next best in the league, and 14 fewer than next best in the playoffs, which is Notts. They have been solid. Really hard to break down. They're well organised, and whilst Johnny Jackson's side may have lost a bit of momentum, they have certainly sort of still not been able to be broken down easily. They've not been a great watch at times, but they've still maintained a solid foundation. They have also got the second best home record in the league, and it is the best in the playoffs as well. So they're going to be a tough team to beat at Plough Lane for sure. And I think in a playoff format, the fact that they don't concede many goals really does suit them. Games are going to be tight. I think these are all well evenly matched teams. So Wimbledon having that sort of edge in terms of organisation may just help them. The issues, though, and you look at the negatives of, look at the weaknesses. The form, only have 2 wins in the last 9 games. It's hardly great form to be entering the playoffs in. Their top scorer, Matty Stevens, he has only scored. He hasn't scored since March. He scored 17 goals this season, but he hasn't scored since March. 8 games he is without a goal, and even before then, it wasn't like he was banging them in frequently. So yeah, the 17 that he's got this season all coming a little while ago. So they haven't really got a load of attacking threat in the team. Omar Bajil as well didn't start in their final game of the season. And yeah, he has lost his form a little bit as well. And it feels like the whole side has. Those are the strengths and weaknesses of Wimbledon. I think, you look at the team that they're playing, and we're going to talk about the game in a minute. We'll move on to Notts now, though. In terms of strengths, you've got to talk about the fact they've got David McGoldrick. He is our star man and a player who probably is above the level, really. I know he's obviously aging now, but he is a fantastic player and has that ability in a playoff game where it could be tight, whether that be against Wimbledon or if Notts make the final. He has got that ability to create something from nothing. Also look at the fact that Alex Bass in goal is one of the best goalkeepers in the league, and the back three, especially Platt and Badeau, giving a very solid core to the Notts team. George Abbott, of course, as well, has been really good in midfield, and he can be a bit of an X factor and a bit of a difference maker. And the second best away record in the league, the best in the playoffs. So on the road, in the playoffs, of course, out of your 3 games, if you're going to go promoted, 2 of them aren't going to be at your home stadium. So the fact that Notts have been travelling so well certainly is a positive. The negative, though, is the form. 4 points from the last 7 home games, kind of underpinning such a poor home record. Had a few more points gone Notts' way, then obviously the last game of the season may have been different. And talking of the last game of the season, they're the only team entering the playoffs that didn't win their last game of the season. 4 points from the 6 games they played against the other teams in the playoffs. I didn't mention Wimbledon have actually only picked up 5 points against the other playoff teams. So Notts and Wimbledon have got by far the worst records against the other big teams heading into the playoffs. So again, that does give you sort of an indication of what the challenges Notts face. 54% of all of Notts' points have come against the bottom 8. That's 39 points, compared to just 12.5% coming against the top 8, which was 9 points. So again, tells you the story that Notts are very good at sort of bowling over teams that are perhaps a little bit lower in terms of quality, but the teams which can match them, like the teams that are going to be in the playoffs, have proven to be a little bit more of a difficult proposition. In fact, Notts have come worse off in pretty much all of those games. We then move on to Chesterfield, the team who finished 7th, just sneaking into the playoffs on the final day of the season. And that has to be the main positive for them. They have got the most momentum going into the playoffs. The last 13 games, they've won 8, drawn 4 and lost just 1. It's a really good extended period of form. They've also got the most experienced manager out of all 4 teams. Matt Sadler at Walsall, Johnny Jackson at Wimbledon and Stuart Maynard at Notts are all relatively inexperienced, especially when you compare them to Paul Cook of Chesterfield. Paul Cook has got 3 EFL promotions, and that's including obviously the promotion that they got for the National League last season as well. And talking of promotions, in their squad, they have got 27 EFL promotions between them, which is an insane amount, an absolutely massive amount of promotions. That does not include the National League promotion that most of the squad got last season as well. So they've got the vastly experienced side, a vastly experienced manager. They've also got game winners. They've got Will Grigg, 12 goals this season, their top goal scorer. So out of all the sides, he's the lowest of the top goal scorers. But he has got 3 goals in his last 3 games. So unlike the other teams, Chesterfield have got a forward who goes into the playoffs in pretty good form as well. They've got match winners. They've got players that can create stuff out of nothing. They've come through what was a bit of an injury crisis, I suppose, for them, and they've now found their form. They're the strengths. Of course, the weaknesses are the fact that they finished in 7th. They are, on paper, gained the fewest points. They got 9 points against the other playoff sides, so they're better than Notts and Wimbledon, but not quite on the level of Walsall. You've also got the fact that maybe they will burn out. They've got this unbelievable run, but we saw Doncaster last season go on a great run to get in the playoffs, but better run than this one, and then fell short in the playoffs as well. So they're the strengths and weaknesses of all the sides. Now, let's have a look at the ties in particular. We'll start with Walsall against Chesterfield. First leg is at Chesterfield on Sunday, and that will be a really intriguing game. It's really tough to call because Walsall won that final game of the season, and I can't work out whether that will affect them positively or negatively. And by that, you think a win will get you positive momentum, but the fact that they were so close to being promoted on the final day is definitely a mental hurdle for them. I think Chesterfield will come out on top. Simply put, I think they're the favourites. We've just outlined their strengths and weaknesses. I kind of struggle to pick many weaknesses for them. I think from a stylistic point of view, this is a really interesting matchup. You've got Chesterfield side who play high possession football. They like to play through the thirds. They like to play out from the back. You've got a Walsall team who don't want the ball. They want to get rid of the ball as quickly as possible or get it into their front men. Look to transition really, really quickly. So I think it's a really interesting stylistic matchup, and both complement each other in a weird way. I guess it's a nice stylistic matchup. I think that Paul Cook will be able to outmaneuver Matt Sadler, especially over 2 legs. Again, that fatigue that I've spoken about with Walsall as a weakness, I think will really affect them. I think it'll be narrow. I don't think Chesterfield will steamroller them, but I think maybe they'll win the first leg 2-0. If I had to throw out a score prediction, and then go in the second leg, they don't need a draw there. I think it would end 1-1 potentially, but I think Chesterfield will find themselves going to Wembley. I think despite the fact that it's 4th versus 7th, I think this one perhaps is the more clear of the 2 semi-finals to call, just because of the momentum. And I actually think on paper as well, you look at individuals, I think that the Chesterfield side is probably actually stronger. Add in a manager who's more experienced, players who know how to handle the pressure, probably a little bit more squad depth as well. I know that Chesterfield have struggled with depth this season because of injuries, but they have probably got better options as well to change things. A, if the first leg doesn't go their way, or B, to keep legs fresh. So yeah, I'm going to go for Chesterfield to make it to Wembley. That then takes us on to the other semi-final, Notts against Wimbledon. First leg, obviously, at Meadow Lane and on Saturday evening. Very interesting kick-off time. And then it is a return fixture at Wimbledon at lunchtime. So very odd timings, really. But, that's neither here nor there. It's the same for both teams. Notts' home record leads me to think that, at home we're not going to be able to keep Wimbledon off of us. The last game between the two sides, Wimbledon really dominated physically, especially the first half. Rob McDonald could actually be a key player. I thought in that game when he came on was a lot more solid and probably suits playing against Wimbledon more than Lewis Macari does. So I think Rob McDonald will get the nod. It'll be a tight game. I think that a David McGoldrick moment of magic could win the game. But I do think that Wimbledon may just come out on top. And I think it'll be a narrow game. I'm going to go, I think, 2-1 to Wimbledon. I think that the fact 4 points from the last 7 at home kind of gives a good indication of where Notts are at home at the moment. That'll mean then in the return leg, if Notts are behind, they'll have to go for it. But I think if Wimbledon have a lead going into the second leg, it's pretty much curtains. I think that they will be able to keep a clean sheet at Plough Lane. I really do. I think that Notts have got to be commanding in the first leg. Again, the styles work really nicely. Wimbledon, a bit more of a physical, direct team. Perhaps not as direct as Walsall, but they can be if they play in Omar Bajil. On the other hand, Notts like to play out, play through the thirds. Again, have struggled to do that of late. But I think that kind of a McGoldrick masterclass with standing, Wimbledon have got to be favourites in this one just because they're so well organised and they dispatch Notts really I don't want to say easily, but it was a very comfortable victory for them the last time these two sides played. The other question mark, which I haven't mentioned yet about David McGoldrick, is fitness. He didn't play the last game, but against Doncaster, David McGoldrick did not play in that game. He was out of an injury, he was on the bench, but how fit is he? Is he ready to start the game, the semi-final? You know, if he isn't, it feels like Notts have been devoid of ideas kind of offensively without him. How severe is the injury? Was he put on the bench just as a sort of mental boost for the players and to put doubt, I guess, in Doncaster minds that, McGoldrick might come on? Or was he genuinely on the bench and could have come on but wasn't risked because the game was pretty much over and other results meant that promotion was unlikely anyway? They're the questions that kind of, I guess, matter, and McGoldrick's fitness will be crucial. I think Wimbledon will go through. Maybe it'll be by 1 goal. I think it'll be close. I think they're well-matched sides, but I just think momentum slightly favours Wimbledon. Not in great form themselves, but I think that the styles suit them, and Notts' home form has been pretty abject. So I do think it could be over after the first tie, because Plough Lane is a tough place to go. I'm not necessarily going to do a prediction for Wembley because it's based on the fantasy scenario of it being Chesterfield against Wimbledon. There's all different permutations. It could end up being Walsall against Notts. So who knows? It could be a rematch from the National League playoff final, Chesterfield against Notts. I do think, though, if Chesterfield get there, that they will have learnt from their last experience at Wembley. One of the big things is that the core of the side that Notts had is definitely gone. The core of the side that Chesterfield had is very, a lot of it is very much still there. And they've got so much experience as well. They've got people that have won at Wembley before. I think that experience will pay dividends for them. It's a big pitch as well at Wembley, and I think that'll suit their style, a bit more expansive. It'd definitely be an interesting tactical battle if it were to be Notts against Chesterfield in the final. But if I'm following the predictions that I made, which is Chesterfield against Wimbledon, I think Chesterfield would triumph in that game, especially on a bigger pitch. On a big occasion, that experience would probably see them through. I think perhaps the worst matchup for Chesterfield in the final would be Notts, just because of the history of the previous final and the styles not matching quite as well. I think should they come up against Wimbledon, it would be a better stylistic matchup for them. But that is your playoff preview. So there we go. I think that Chesterfield are the favourites, and I do think they are going to be the side that get promoted into League One. Let me know what you guys think. Please comment below who you think are going to win the playoffs. Of course, I'm hoping that Notts can pull it off, and it's not beyond the realms of possibility, but right now I think there are other sides who are probably in better form and better position to go on and do that. But it'll be interesting. Let's see how it plays out. They're obviously starting very soon. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this. As I say, the regular content hopefully will be returning to the channel. I've got lots of ideas for videos, so yeah, hopefully they'll be coming to the channel over the next few weeks. If there's any ideas you'd like to see, please do let me know in the comments below. If you could subscribe, it would be massive. It helps more than you realise. It really does help the channel. Liking the video likewise does help the video get out there and for more people to see it. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in the next one.